A little media tour of the Ross County Jail renovation shows the challenges the county is currently facing to make sure that they have a secure and adequate facility to house inmates. We'll be back to talk with the Ross County Sheriff's Department right after this.
Well, we recently met with the commissioners again. We've had meetings with them almost every Monday. Senate Bill 310 now has opened up around $50 million for jails for county jails. And, you know, there's a grading system to what they need. Certain items, you know, you get a higher grade than others. But we found a deficiency in this building where they're saying there's 16 inches of rebar every 16 inches in the walls. We're finding out through three prior attempts in this last escape that we're not finding any rebar. Everywhere they're digging out, we're not seeing the rebar. And Major White will show you some pictures of where they dug out, and there's no rebar in that area. So with the deficiency in the building, we're going to have to put metal on these exterior walls. We've been meeting with the commissioners. You know, we're all us and them are trying to get money set back so we can make those improvements as the construction companies in here doing their work. So it's just something for the safety of this community we have to address and acknowledge that we got these deficiencies and get it back up to where the inmates can't dig out there in 3 hours and be outside of the cell. So those are the main issues we're trying to address right now.
The rebar that's missing, was it that way when they built it in 88, 89?
It had to be, Mike. I mean, when the plans was brought over to me by Brad, it shows it in there. Now, I know with construction, Vern had somebody actually on site. Sheriff Stanford had somebody on site while they were constructing theirs, and they had to sign off when that was done, when that phase was completed. Back in the 80s, I don't know if they did that, but you know, where they're saying it's every 16 inches, I'm not seeing it over the past temps. That's all I'm saying. Is there some in there? Possibly. We're not saying that. Probably there is, but I don't know how they're getting lucky on the 4 attempts, you know, and the one succeeding of getting out. I don't know how they're getting lucky to dig between the rebar all the time.
Major White, if you can describe what these pictures are showing and how that was done.
We had an attempt that was made that we luckily were able to intercept during the process. There was a sprinkler head area that had a cracked block. So there was a metal plate put in place to cover over top that one crack near the sprinkler head. The inmates were able to get that metal plate removed from the wall. Once they were able to remove that from a wall, they took it to a separate cell and began digging out a wall. Once they started going into the mortar of the block to where it was more of a brittle mortar, it's not taking long to get through. They did discover a large support beam. It's not rebar, but a large support beam that went up, so they moved over a little more and kept working. They were actually able to get enough block out and be able to see the true red brick that's on the exterior of the building. And there's nothing there separating from that inner block and that red brick. With that happening, they were just moments away from being able to kick out that red brick and then be out onto the street as well. A lot of what I believe started this process is we were able to acquire a body scanner and put that into place. With that body scanner, we're scanning all the people that are being arrested coming in, and that has greatly helped reduce the amount of drugs that's able to be brought into the jail through the arrest process that they were able to conceal in their body. The attempts were to try to make some holes in the walls to get some drugs inside the facility. They used to be able to use the windows to do it, but metal grating has been put over those windows to help deter that from happening. Well, unfortunately, they found, on our behalf anyway, that once they got in to start digging at this wall a little bit to make an access point to get some drugs in, they're able to dig out enough to leave. We've got patrols, we go in, we do our rounds, we do the cell inspections, but the time frame on this last one that we have as roughly a 4-hour window of no damage to what you'll see. And if they're able to do that in a 4-hour window, it's just very alarming with the way the supervision is set up and how we have to go in and do our rounds to stay on top of it. We're being vigilant and we're making every effort that we can. By no means are we saying we're perfect at everything we do, but we're also saying we need some help to bring this building up to date to where it needs to be.
And Sheriff, in order to do that with the Senate Bill 310 funds that may be or might be available, what are the immediate things other than the reconstruction or possibly reinforcement of these walls in the cells? What are some of the other things that eyes on the inmates that will help you? Can that be used in that regard?
There is different things that the grant will cover. You know, we want added cameras. You know, we want outside cameras just to know that if there is a breach. But, you know, our main function, I think the steel in the walls is a better thing, because I would much rather stop it altogether than knowing you got a breach on the outside. So, you know, there is camera systems that can be bought off of this. Also, I don't know, and it's I got to do my part in filling out for the grant. Commissioners will do their part. We've talked about that, and might even help us on some of our funding that we've got to put for the remodeling of this. We don't know. It's just something we got to see if they'll help cover that to offset our taxpayers' money that's going into that. So hopefully the grant will help us to pay for some of that going forward too.
And I guess just to revisit what renovation has taken place, I think the public needs to understand, and even though I know there were a number of different stories that told what you were doing, there's still this maybe perception that that's the fix-all. Obviously, it's not.
No, it's not going to add to our inmate population at all. You know, we got about 101 beds that we can utilize here. After that, with the Bureau of Adult Detention Standards, we have to send people out to other counties. So one thing this will help us, we got a 3-bed infirmary. This will give us 11 beds with a better nursing station, a bigger, better nursing station where the nurses can keep their eye on the people better. It will separate the males from the females, which has to be done by the Bureau of Adult Detention Standards. With the drug use that's going on, we have a lot of sick people in here. You know, when they come in, they have health concerns. So instead of have to take them to the hospital and everything, with the 24-hour nursing that the commissioners approved for us to have, and with the new infirmary, I think that'll keep a lot of our people from having to go to Adena and those additional costs of taking them out to the hospital and having all the tests done. A lot of that can be done in-house now. We got a telemedical unit that, you know, we can set them down in front of a video system with the hospital and get their vitals and all that stuff. So we're putting things in place to save the taxpayers money, but also control the inmates that's going in and out of here, which is very important.
It's moved along quite a ways, and it's with the housing and things that changed with the prisons and what they hold. We have the felony 4 and 5s now that used to go to the prisons years ago. Through the prison population reduction plan they put in place quite a few years ago, the counties now are responsible for these felony 4 and 5s. So the people that we have aren't your misdemeanor people that are here 30, 60, 90 days and they get released. We're looking 2-3 year sentences that they're here. And when they're here 2 to 3 years and you believe you can't get to some of those drugs or some other things, they are a lot more violent, a lot more destructive, and more willing to leave. The population has changed dramatically here. Part of the reasons that the sheriff brought me in here as administrator is I had some experience in DRC, and I worked there for several years, and we're used to working with the felons and things of that nature. So I came in to try to help with the jail and the complete change of population that we have. Unfortunately, right when I came in is when COVID became a thing, and no one had a playbook for it. So that has really hindered a lot of the things we want to try to do, some of the changes we want to make. Now that we're kind of getting it to where it's at least somewhat manageable at this time, we're really trying to address these major issues that we have in the jail and the population that we have.
Before COVID hit, we were setting up a committee to look at another facility. I mean, we are outgrowing this with the stipulations that Major White talked about with the prisons putting on the county jails. We're outgrowing this. I used to have more misdemeanors in here. I could take them out, work in the community. That's all gone now. We're sending them, when they get sentenced on a misdemeanor crime, we're sending them to other counties that has dormitory style housing that can house them because our population here is too high and we're being stuck with felony. So we have to look at another facility going forward. And we all realized that even before COVID hit, we realized that. And we all know that eventually we're going to have to take a serious look moving forward that we are outgrowing this facility under the current structures in place from the prison systems on down. So, you know, they're being responsible by helping us to look into this. You know, I hate to go over all the time and say, hey, we need this, we need that. It's a cost, we know that, but I think it's going to take us working together to keep this community safe.
I think key to remember as well on this Senate Bill 310 that we're all speaking of and we spoke of quite frequently, there's $50 million available, but that's statewide. That's not, and when you look at it that perspective, that's not a lot of money to go around to all the different places. So the deadline to apply for this is June, and we definitely want to be on the forefront of that and get what we can get. And all we can do is ask, see what we can get and what we can improve. But I'm sure there's going to be a shortfall because that is going to be spread amongst all the counties through the state. Now the big three C's, that Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, apparently have already taken part of that and received some funding. So this should be separate from them. But we're not the only county in need. This is statewide. Very evident in Fayette County, where you guys are able to visit already and see their jail and what they had to do for the area they're in. And our population's higher, and we're behind the scenes on that. We need to get caught up with what we currently have.
As Major White referenced, despite the fact that Ross County has a larger population than neighboring Fayette County, the new Fayette County Law Complex has a much more secure and adequate facility to house inmates. I'm Mike Smith, Litter Media.